Hello, in this video we will discuss about the stroke, and we will discuss with regard to the stroke, and will understand the circle of Willis. We should need to understand. So let's begin to understand from brain. So the bottom view of brain I am drawing here, and this contain a left hemisphere and right hemisphere of the cerebral cortex, and this is basically the part of brain, and the blood supply through a aortic arch through carotid artery. So this is the circle of Willis, which that is showing in the figure, and this is the internal carotid artery and external carotid artery. So the internal carotid artery supply to the brain, while the external carotid artery through supply the blood into the face, scalp, and neck. So this is the anterior communicating artery and the right anterior cerebral artery and left middle cerebral artery, and the circle, this is the basically a left middle cerebral artery, and this is the you can understand here, this is the right internal carotid artery. So this is right internal carotid artery, and this is the right posterior communicating artery and the right posterior cerebral artery, which that is supply the blood into the cerebral cortex, while the basilar artery is here, which that is the basal, and this is the left vertebral artery, and the spinal cord, which that is supply the blood to the spinal cord, that is here is spinal cord, and this is known as the left vertebral artery because it supplies blood through vertebrae. So let's begin to understand the circle of Willis with regard to the right and left hemisphere of the cerebral cortex. So the anterior right cerebral artery and anterior left artery. So this is the internal carotid artery and external carotid artery, while here you can see this is the left and right hemisphere, and you can understand, and in this way here is the anterior right carotid artery anterior, and this is the anterior left carotid artery, which that is anterior left. So this is supply the blood into the anterior cerebral cortex, and this is the anterior communicating artery, which that's communicate to each other. While here is the posterior inferior cerebral artery, and this is the total brain damage. If the we will discuss also, this is the circle of Willis. Why? Because it is communicate to each other, so the blood supply communication to each other. So let's begin to understand the stroke is the blockage of blood flow to the brain. So the stroke type is ischemic stroke and hemorrhagic stroke. Hemorrhagic stroke is different and ischemic stroke is different. Let's begin to understand both. So first of all, we should need to introduce the stroke processes. So the pathophysiology of stroke. So this is the heart, which that is heart, which that is aortic arch through a internal carotid artery and external carotid artery supply the blood toward the external carotid artery supply face, scalp, and neck, while the internal carotid artery supply to the brain. So this is the aortic arch, and this is the descending aorta. This descending aorta supply blood toward the downside of the body, the peripheral part of the body, the oxygenated blood. So let's begin to understand normal and abnormal physiology of the stroke. So this is basically here is the normal. It is healthy artery. This is the carotid artery and the external carotid artery. So it supply blood toward the scalp as well, but you can understand with that generally. So this is the common carotid artery, In this way, the common carotid artery supply the blood toward the internal and external. This is looking like this, and internal and external. So the normal blood flow. While the abnormal blood flow due to the plaque development, due to the atherosclerosis or arteriosclerosis, due to the lipid deposition, due to the hypercholesteremia. So it can be hypercholesteremia or diabetic person can develop the plaque, which that will be seize the blood flow, and in this the impede the blood flow will basically rupture this plaque will develop, and the rupturing will move to the upward of the brain, and where the smaller capillary are present, so the bursting or obstruction, and this will lead to rupture. While here the right side of the brain, and this will when damaged, and this is the left side of damage due to the obstruction, and this is the total brain damage due to the basilar artery. So this is the anterior right damage, anterior left damage due to the obstruction from this. So this is important things, but let's begin to understand the ischemic stroke and hemorrhagic stroke. So the ischemic stroke is different as compared to the hemorrhagic stroke. Why? Because the ischemic stroke is due to the decrease of the blood flow. So the clot causing embolic stroke. So here is the clot which that is causing the embolic stroke, and in this way, due to the blood clotting or some other factors which that will lead to clot the blood. After the clotting of the blood flow will be stopped. In this way, the brain will be damaged because the oxygen will not. So on the other hand, here is the plaque causing embolic stroke. So in this way, the plaque which that is causing the embolic stroke due to the rupture of the plaque, and where the narrow artery which that will lead to obstruction. While on the other hand, the transient ischemic attack due to the clotting factors. These clotting factors can be blood. So here the hemorrhagic stroke is due to the rupture of the blood vessel. So the burst aneurysm causing subarachnoid hemorrhage. Arachnoid is basically is the layer of the brain. For example, the dura mater, pia mater, and arachnoid. So this is the torn artery causing the internal intracerebral hemorrhage. So anyhow, let's begin to understand the symptom of stroke. But that was the stroke function. While the symptom of stroke can be a confusion, let's begin to understand. So the stroke affect our 15 million people worldwide every year. So the symptom of stroke, let's begin to understand. So this is first we should need to understand this is the confusion and headache due to the brain stroke, and the trouble speaking due to the less oxygen supply and vision changes, impairment of vision, and the tachycardia. On the other hand, the dizziness and heat production more, and numbness, trouble walking, and basically is the trouble walking due to the brain dysfunction. While the weakness due to the weakness is due to the blood will not control, blood will not supply into the brain, so the control of the muscle contraction will be lost much, and lack of balance, coordination, and deficiency of the lack of balance and the difficulty understanding. So the reason is obesity, alcoholism, high cholesterol, high blood glucose, blood pressure also, and the smoking, genetics, and the heart disease, stress, diabetes. So this all thing is related to the stroke. So I hope you make sense about this, and next video we will discuss with the